I would just suggest to anybody listening who is thinking of moving forward on their journey and meeting biologicals to just go way slower than I did. And
Yeah.
don't show up and stay at their house, regardless of whether you have a ring to stay in or not. You need that time to disconnect and to go process.
Who am I?
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 This is Who Am I, Really? A podcast about adoptees that have located and connected with their biological family members. I'm Damon Davis, and today you're going to meet Alejandra, who spoke to me from Tampa, Florida. Growing up, Alejandra towered over her parents who loved her deeply, making her feel safe and to whom she feels loyalty. But adoption reunion found Alejandra twice. Her maternal side had searched for decades to find her, and her paternal aunt found her and introduced her to her half-brother. Alejandra has special gifts that made her super fast, overwhelming maternal reunion a challenging adventure. This is Alejandra's journey.
It's interesting,
When I say the phrase transracial adoptee, you probably have a core set of stereotypes that pop into your head, like they do for me. Mine are of white parents with a black child or white parents with an Asian child.
The reverse, right? Because if you look at me, I'm blonde hair, blue eyes, and I went into a Mexican household with Mexican-American parents in a very Mexican-American community because I grew up right on the border with Mexico in Laredo, Texas. And so it's funny, I stood out the other way, right? So it's just wild. And I've never thought of that until actually somebody else brought it up. It was just very much a part of me. I mean, they called me Güera, which means blonde in Spanish. And my sister also, same situation, right? Adopted from the same agency as I was, also blonde, green-eyed in her case. So it is funny when you go back and think about it. But I mean, it was really fun. Clearly, I didn't know anything else.
May I ask then, are you saying that you are not of Mexican descent and you're a transracial adoptee? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm not of Mexican descent. I did my DNA, and my DNA is, I'm actually 60% British, full on. And then the rest of it is that whole area is Wales and Scotland. So I'm from that whole region DNA wise. And then since both my biological families found me, I have even more information on all of that. So no, I'm a white girl.
That's
the name
unreal.
Alejandra Margarita Gonzalez, but it's going now Brady when I got married.
Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. So did you just rattle off like 4 or 5 names that's classic
That's
to...
my whole name. Yep.
Really? That's unbelievable. So you're a white woman with 4 to 5 Hispanic names in tradition
Absolutely.
of... That's really fascinating, huh?
Yeah.
So what was
Yeah.
your life like in this southern part of Texas growing up as an adoptee in your family?
Laredo was a really interesting place. My parents have both since passed, so I don't really have any reason to go down there anymore. The last time if I go, it's for a funeral, sadly. It's grown, but when I was growing up in it, it had about 95,000 people, I think. More if you included the Mexican side because it was very interconnected. Back then, you could go back and forth across the bridge. And I was the girl. Funny, my parents were super strict with me, but I was the girl that was allowed to be on the Mexican side at the nightclubs with a cigarette in one hand and a scotch in the other at 15 because there were no drinking laws. So in some ways, that's been great, right? Because I never care if I have a drink or not. It wasn't that, ooh, got to be 21 thing. So it was really interesting growing up in a very Mexican culture. And again, it's all I knew. I remember when I got to Notre Dame in 1985, before internet and computers and all of that stuff. And people were like, let's go out for Mexican food. And I remember this so clearly. I was like, what is Mexican food? And they're like, nachos. I'm like, no, that's just food. Like, that's what they call food.
That's so funny. I've often wondered about that too. Like we sit here in America and we go, you know what? I feel like Chinese food. And in China, they just think it's time for dinner.
Right. Right. I was like, what is Mexican food?
Wow.
I remember that super clearly in South Bend, Indiana in 1985. And it was funny to me because, yes, when we go out, we'd say we want to go out for Chinese food too. But Mexican food to us was just breakfast, lunch, or dinner. When do you want tacos? Do you want tacos for breakfast or tacos for dinner? I had a good childhood. I had great parents who adored us and who maybe were almost too much. You know what I mean? They tried so long to get children. And my mom in the mid 1960s was having all these exploratory surgeries at Johns Hopkins while my dad was there. And they went through a lot to finally get myself and then 4 years later, my sister. And they were great parents, as good as they could possibly be. None of us is given a manual on how to raise children. So I think we all do our best.
Yeah.
I do think one thing they did really well is they always told us we were adopted. So it was never a secret. It was not. And I was actually privy to somebody else that I grew up with who didn't know she was adopted. And she found out from someone else, like in high school. And it was very traumatizing for her. And my mom and dad always said, you didn't come from mommy's tummy. You were very special. You were chosen. You came from God. You were a gift. All those words, all those adjectives. So I did always feel very loved, very special in that respect. And I did grow up with kids, though, who would say, oh, these are not your real parents. And that's fine. That's what children do sometimes when they bring
Why
that
were they
stuff
saying
out.
that?
Because they found out that I was adopted from their parents or something. So then, and I'm thinking more late elementary, early middle. Again, because of where I grew up, I was in the same school basically from, I think it was first or second grade, all the way through graduation, 12th grade. So once you're in with these kids for a while, everybody knows everybody. So that's no longer a conversation. But at the beginning, when people are like, oh, my mom said that that's not your real mom. Oh, my mom said that you didn't come from your mom, that kind of thing. And also when you saw my parents, I'm 5'6". My mom and dad, I think maybe hit 5'1". They were little, maybe 5'2", maybe 5'3" for my dad. And my dad was dark haired, darker skin, very Mexican, what you would consider quote unquote, which now having traveled all over Mexico and going to Mexico City, there's 28 million people there. People look like everything that are full blooded Mexicans. But if you took what a very stereotypical Mexican would look like, my dad fit that bill. And then my mom was a little lighter skinned. People still say I look like my mom to these days, but she had brown eyes, short, little rounder than me, just a completely different physique. So like I towered over them at a very early age.
That's
So
really funny.
people were curious because it's like, well, wait, we all look like our mom and dad. You don't look as
You don't
much
fit
like
the
them. And then
mold.
so the conversation would come up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. How were you alike or dissimilar in terms of your personalities?
I am a firm believer in having had both families find me, and especially my biological mother, and spending 11 years in some sort of relationship with her or not. I think nurture over nature really does take over. Really.
Three
Yeah.
more. Tell me about the nurture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, some days I hate to admit it, right? Because my mom also drove me crazy, a typical mother-daughter relationship. And when I say my mom, I mean the one who raised, not Margarita, not my biological mom. I will use mother for her biological mother or something. I never call her mom. As much as she drove me crazy, the older I get, and I just turned 58 a couple weeks ago, it's like the more I realize I'm a lot like her. In a lot of ways, we do become our parents. I try and learn from the things I felt that she did, maybe that could have been done better as we were raising our child. But I do find myself reverting to the way I was raised and the values that they instilled quite a bit. And it'll be a little bit of a jump forward, but I do remember the first time that I went to meet and visit with my biological mother and her family, her husband, because she didn't marry. It was a high school romance that created me. So she didn't marry the man who was my biological father. Her husband of many years was trying really hard to like find a connection between us. And he kept saying, oh, blood is thicker than water. And, oh, you like to cook and she likes to cook. I'm like, well, so did my mom who raised me. And so did my grandmother who taught me how to cook. He was very much trying to create some sort of connection between us. And I get it. But at the same time, that's insulting to the family that raised me to say that blood is thicker than water and I'm more like you than them who I'm meeting for the first time. And 11 years of trying to make that relationship work gave me a very clear understanding that nurture, in my case, maybe not for everybody, but nurture in my case was much, much stronger than nature. Physically and conditions and stuff that I've had,
Health
I'm more
issues.
like biological. Yeah, for sure. The
Yeah,
biological
yeah, the
definitely comes in there. Although funny, my mom couldn't have me and adopted me because she had female problems and had to have a hysterectomy. So did I.
mhm,
So did my biological mother. So it's funny how some things carried all the way through.
mhm.
The most part, I'd say in my situation, yeah, nurture played a much bigger role than nature.
That's really fascinating. Wow. Just
Mhm.
if you don't mind staying with your female issues and the hysterectomy, did you have your son or did you adopt your son?
I had him, as any 26-year-old seems to be able to get pregnant without much worry. So
Hmm.
we had him. I had a great pregnancy, never even threw up. I mean, so I was really excited to do it again because I had such a good experience with him. And then everything went downhill from there. I lost the next four pregnancies, and then the last one turned ectopic and ruptured. And so then I was rushed to the hospital and was hemorrhaging out. And then at that point, my husband's like, "You are done. He needs a mother more than a sibling, but we can look at other ways." So then I actually did two different adoption options. I can still see her to this day. I found a little girl in Romania. And I mean, she had the bangs. I mean, she was beautiful and just the sweetest little thing. She was about two. And in the middle of that, they shut down the adoptions to Romania.
Oh
So
boy.
then we pivoted. A woman I knew, I wouldn't say she was a friend, she was an acquaintance of mine, had adopted several children. And the girl that she adopted these children from was once again pregnant. And she's like, "I can't take on a fourth, but would you be open?" And so my adoption was a sealed adoption in 1967. And so I'm sure you know what that means, and your audience probably knows that, right? There's no contact with the birth mother. There isn't like, "Oh, I get to come to the parties and hang out and then leave." This girl would not do a sealed adoption. She wanted to be involved in the kid's life. I mean, I'm like, "Girl, go tie your tubes." Like, you're giving up kid after kid. And in that mindset, you're also like, "Why is she getting pregnant and I can't?" We went through all of that. It was a 10-year fertility journey for us after our son was born. And then we just let it go. So I agreed to everything I didn't want to do, which was open adoption. She could visit the baby because I really wanted a sibling for our son. And this child would also have other siblings because my friend had them. So I'm like, "Well, that's weird, but okay, because I really want a child for my son to not be an only child." And she had an abortion about 4 weeks after she told us yes.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And at that
wow.
point, I was broken, honestly. At that
Yeah.
point, I was almost 40, right? Because I had our son at 27. And so my husband was 29. So, yeah, so he was then going to be turning 40. And I was like 38 or something. And we're, you know what? Our son's almost 11. He's going to be an only child no matter what, because it's just been such a long journey. And we just put the whole adoption thing to rest.
Alejandra went on to say that her son's life as an only child may have worked out for the best for him, as he ended up playing on all-star lacrosse teams, which had the family on planes endlessly for games and tournaments. Not exactly the kind of life a young child adopted into their home would have found comforting. Of course, we tend to pry into one another's lives, and occasionally someone would ask why Alejandra didn't have more kids in a less than caring tone. Alejandra would shut them down by saying,
I don't have more kids because I lost the last four. Anything else you want to ask me? If they're being snotty about it, if they're being nice and asking with a caring concern or what happened, but if they're being, you can tell when people are asking and how they're asking. And I'm a massive empath, so I can feel people's energy very clearly. So I just know when I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And that was a long time ago, but in the middle of our fertility journey, it was touchy. And yeah, I
I can,
still see that little girl's face to this day. I hope she's okay.
yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that I hope she's okay. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about there's a parallel between this piece of your personal story the challenges of fertility, the dangers of an ectopic pregnancy. My wife also had one. Fortunately,
Mm,
we caught it very early before
mm,
we got to a point of rupture, but they discovered it. And so I'm sensitive to the things that you're saying. But the parallel that I'm noticing is that in adoptee journeys, we decide how much we're going to tell somebody, and it's based on how they approach us about being adopted. And the same
yep,
thing is true here in your discussion of your family structure, right? The same things are happening. It depends
right.
on how they approach me. It depends on how close I am to them and how much time we have to discuss this thing as to how deep I go into the issues, right? In adoption, I've often said you get the elevator version. And it's especially if they come at you at a weird angle, you're just like, listen, I'm just going to tell you the super brief version. And you're
Right.
saying the same thing in your fertility journey and your
Sure.
desire to build your family. So it's fascinating. And I guess what I'm trying to say is we all have these pieces of our lives where we decide how much we want to tell the other person because it's our story to own. And everybody doesn't,
Right.
just because you ask, you don't get full access and rights to the story.
And you can
Um,
tell when somebody doesn't really want to know. They're asking for not the right reasons. So yeah, I just like,
that's right.
and
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote my book, right? So it's all in the book. So now I just go, yeah, you can get the book and read it.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's like,
So
there you go.
I'm always interested in what triggers and catalysts were present for an adoptee when they wanted to search for their birth parents. What was going on at that time and how did their search go? But you already heard Alejandra say she was found by both of her birth families. I asked her about when she ever decided that she wanted to search for her birth relatives.
Never,
Really?
never. I
So
never
what
searched for them.
So you never had any
Never.
desire? You were perfectly comfortable where you were in your family.
Yep.
So tell me then, you were found. Where were you in your life? What was happening for you at this time that you were located by your biological family? And which family found you first?
Mother's family found me first because that's the fastest question to answer. I will preface this by saying when people asked me the exact question you asked me, I always said, no, I am just one of those people that has never had a desire to search for their biological family. I am grateful to the woman who gave me up for adoption. It was the 60s. She could have had a different outcome. And I always said, I will never look for her and I will never disrupt her life because I'm grateful for what she did for me. And she gave me great parents and a good life. However, and I always had this caveat in there, if she ever looked for me, I would be open to it. Now, again, based on the fact that, as my dad said, you started out expensive because sealed adoptions are not inexpensive by any means. And it never stopped. I'm like, yeah, that's just me. What can I say? Um, I never thought what happened would happen because I didn't think it was possible to unseal those records and have somebody locate me. So I said that caveat very nonchalantly. So then, fast forward to answer your current question. I was 40. My parents both died when I was 38. My mom at 66 dropped dead of a heart attack, like within a minute. And my dad died 6 months to the day that my mom died, and he died because she died. He was done. They
Really?
were really connected. They were really close. So I did see a beautiful family unit in that respect growing up. And my husband and I have now been married 35 years. So hoping to emulate that to the best of our ability. Marriage is work, as I'm sure it's never
Ew.
easy, but it's work.
Yeah.
So it was right after, if I was 40, it was right around the 2 year anniversary mark of my parents being gone. And that part's really important because I don't think I would have said yes to any of it, especially if my mom was still alive. I don't think my mom would have been okay emotionally for me to have a relationship with this other woman. So the fact that she was gone and I no longer had quote unquote parents, I feel I was in a much more open place to receive people who showed up and wanted to be parents, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you miss that no matter if you're an adult or what. You miss the fact that you don't have parents, and my son didn't have grandparents anymore. And he was 11. So my son and his friend were, I remember it so clearly. They were in the dining room playing Risk, that board game, because, you need a lot of space and they've been playing for hours. And I went to the mailbox, grabbed the mail, walked inside, and I opened this letter that didn't seem familiar. And it was so matter of fact. It just said, if your name is, and you were born at this hospital at this time, please call this number. Your biological family is looking for you. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. And I remember calling my husband and I'm like, when you get home from work, we need to talk about this. And so when he got home, he and my son and I sat down and talked. And I said, what do I do? Because I was aware enough to know that it would open a can of worms, right? The first thing would be like, well, what if, first thing that go through your mind for any logical person when somebody finds you, right? What do they want? Do they need money? Do they need a kidney? Do they need a bone marrow transplant? Like, why are they finding me at the age of 40? What do they want from me? We talked about all of that. And then my husband and my son very much encouraged me to respond and just ask questions, call the number and say, who are you? Why are they looking for me? And so the next day I did, and I found out it was a private investigator. They'd been searching for me for over 20 years. So they'd been paying this person for over 20 years to find me. They were very well off. So they weren't looking for money. They weren't looking for body parts, they just have been looking to find me for over 20 years.
Unreal.
And then they're like, okay, so what's your phone number? Because we'll just have her call you. And I'm like, wait, this is a little too much too fast. And then they said on their side, they're like, well, they've been waiting 20 years. And I'm like, and I've had this for 24 hours. Like,
Yeah.
I need to process. So then the next step was to email each other and to send some photos. And she had another son and then another son and then a daughter. So she had 3 kids after me, all with this man. And the middle of those 3 kids had sadly died in a car accident. So she had 2 children. And the first thing that we did was we all started emailing and they sent me pictures of her children with their kids, right? And so I sent some pictures of us with our son. And little by little, then we agreed to talk on the phone. Art made me a really big margarita. And
So pause
they were
before
also-
a second.
Pause for a second before you get there. So you said, I've only had this for 24 hours and they've tried to throw this at you, right? Like, well, they're ready. Let me give you the number. And you're
Right.
not ready yet. You've processed this a little bit, it sounds like, with your husband, Art. But what did it look like to process the introduction over email and the sending and receiving pictures? Like, how was that feeling for you as you're,
shaking.
yeah, say more.
I was shaking. I was nervous to finally have contact with this woman. But at the same time, I actually wanted to tell her how grateful I was for what she did for me. And I wanted her to know that I had a good life. I was curious. I wanted to see people that maybe I looked like because I didn't look like anyone. And of course, now my son looks more like me. But at that time, he was all my husband and playing lacrosse. And my husband was captain of lacrosse in college too. And I'm like, okay, there's just no one that, So curiosity, of course, I want to see other people that look like me. And they do. I'm stamp and repeat of my biological. I actually look more like her than her other children do. Except funny, once again, she's 5'1" and different body style completely. So I towered over her. I'm like, but the face, like they said, do you guys want to do DNA? And we just looked at each other like, there's literally no need. Like it was just stamp and repeat on the face. So that was very interesting to see. And so, so slowly but surely. And then I talked to her on the phone one night too. And I told her exactly what I just told you, what I wanted to say to her. And then we all decided, okay, it was time to meet in person.
Wait,
Yeah, go for it.
when you told her, say again what you wanted to tell her, and then what did she say? How did she respond?
She was crying.
What did
She
you
was
say?
crying. I just said, I just want to say thank you. I've had a really great life, very well educated, very well traveled, bilingual. I think at that point I was already trilingual. have a great husband, great kid, great family life here. Everything's good. Like everything's good. And thank you. Like I'm not some little train wreck under a bridge, right? Thank you for giving me the chance to have the life. Because I understand having had a child, as I'm sure you do too. Once you have a child, you understand how difficult it must have been for her, even at 18, to hand that baby over. Right. And so she told me her story and how that all came to happen. And that helped me even have even more empathy towards her. She got pregnant from her high school boyfriend. The boyfriend and his family wanted nothing to do with it. Her family was, of course, ashamed. It was Catholic families, 1960s. So they sent her from the city where they were living in Texas, which was Houston, to a home for unwed mothers in Austin, Texas, run by nuns who, of course, were not the kindest. So I went to school with Catholic nuns. They're not as empathetic.
Yeah, right.
And of course, quite judgmental. And she said that. So that's why I'm able to say it, because she told me that as part of her story. And she had me. Nobody came to be with her when she had me from her family. And they allowed her to keep me in the room with her for 3 days.
Huh.
And then the nun came in, took me, and said, the adoptive parents are here. Just pretend this never happened and go back to your life. So knowing all that kind of broke my heart for her too. Like that must be incredibly hard and an incredibly difficult thing to deal with. And so she told me she wrote me letters and would send them to the agency. And my parents never showed me a letter. So I would assume that the agency would contact my parents and my parents would say, hell no, we want no contact with her, which I understand my parents' form too. It's like, we're the ones raising her. We're the ones changing the diapers. We're the ones doing everything. You don't get to just throw this bomb into the
Yeah.
mix. And of course, as a girl, you're fighting with your mom. Like no one needs to have an option of a second place to go to if you're having a
Yeah,
hard time
right.
with your parents. So I get it. I
But
100% get why my parents did that.
do you have confirmation that they did that, or are you assuming that they did that? Because
Well, my
I've spoken,
confirmation is that she wrote letters and turned them into the agency, and I never got any.
but that assumes that the agency would
Gave them
turn
to my
around and
parents.
say, hey, closed adoption. Here's something that's going to disrupt your family. Let me give you these letters. They don't do that.
I do not have confirmation of that because both parents were dead.
Yeah. That's what
And
I'm saying.
we didn't find any letters when we went through my parents' things. But I guess I just assumed that because of that scenario.
It's not a fair assumption.
Interesting.
No. So I'm going to tell you
Interesting.
a couple of things that I've heard from
Yeah.
people. So, and I understand how you arrived at that, but it's not necessarily a fair assumption on your parents' part, because there's a thing in the adoptee community where birth parents have written letters and kept in touch with the adoption agency, and the adoption agency, one, will keep the letters forever, and when someone comes to find them, they will give it to them. Two, they will completely discard the letters and be like, that's a closed adoption, and we don't do that. And so those letters they will turn to the biological parent and say, oh, that's so sweet, we'll take that, throw it in the trash, basically. That's figurative, but you understand what I'm
Right.
saying.
Of course.
And so the perception back when you were born was, we've severed that. The same way that the
Mhm.
nun said, you need to go ahead and forget about this, the adoption agencies often had a similar stance. Also, if your adoptive parents had said to the agency, hey, listen, we're just interested. Has anybody sent any letters for her? We would like to keep them for her in case she gets curious. The agency might have told them, nope, no letters. And a lot of times adoptees have told me that they've heard, as you did,
Hmm.
their biological mother had written letters and they have gone to the agency to ask for them. And you have never heard of more floods or fires than at an adoption agency because they have gotten rid of the letters. So I'm not trying to be critical. I just want to
No,
open
not
your
at all.
eyes
It's
to the
quite
fact that
interesting to have a different
this
perspective
is
because I never
this
thought of
is
that.
yeah, this is actually, it's not necessarily fair to your parents, and I know they're not here, to think
Mhm.
that they pushed this away when in fact it may not have been, they may not have known at all. They may have never ever heard from that adoption agency again about your biological mother. So those letters have vanished into thin air,
And
unfortunately.
I've also never tried to look for them again because I
Yeah.
just didn't care. Like, it's not, once I met her, it wasn't like, oh, let me go back. I don't even know if the agency exists anymore. I never made an effort to see if I could find those, to see what she had written to me. Because I met her. I'm like, okay, well, we've already met. Like, I don't need to go
Yeah, I
back and
understand.
rehash what you were thinking. So,
Yeah.
no, that's super interesting,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. And I'll underscore again, you have never heard of more fires or floods than at
I
an
believe it.
adoption agency. It's surreal. That was just the classic excuse they gave to people. It's crazy.
Alejandra had gotten her birth mother on the phone and shared her thanks for placing her for adoption, letting the woman know she was okay and had enjoyed a good life. They were sentiments that brought her birth mother to tears. Their next step was to meet in person in whatever way Alejandra felt most comfortable. She decided to fly to her maternal family in Dallas, Texas, alone. It wasn't clear how the reunion would pan out, and Alejandra didn't want to expose her son to these new, unknown people.
My husband offered to come, and I would like to offer this as a cautionary tale to everyone. And there is a line in my book about it. I went in with my heart wide open and my eyes shut. I should have stayed at a hotel. They asked me to stay with them at their home, and I said yes. And it was a beautiful home, and I had my own guest wing. But I should have stayed at a hotel. I should have limited my exposure to them and to the family, because after 3 days of being there and them bringing everybody in to meet me, again, I'm highly empathic and I'm highly sensitive to other people's energy. I was throwing up in the toilet and had a migraine, and I had to delay my flight 2 more days and just be in bed because it was so much for me to take in. And it was all these people's expectations and all the comparisons, right? Like the husband, which, I mean, I'm not saying he came from a bad place. Later on, he did not become a very nice person to me. But at the beginning, it was all about the comparisons, right? And I was very torn when you're saying, oh, it's nature, not nurture. I'm like, dude, I have known you for like 2 hours and these people raised me for 40 years. No, it's nurture. I get the face, that's nature. But, what you're saying about what I like and what my hobbies are and all of that is nurture, at least for me. So I felt like he was being a little bit disrespectful to my parents and discounting everything that they had done with me and for me and saying, oh, it's because of my biological mother that I'm all of these things. And it was just a lot. And then of course there's all the fun stuff. My biological brother, they're all halves, right? They're all half siblings. And I like have the same lips. My sister and I have the same hands. So it was fun there to try and see similarities. But then the relatives all started coming and they had a big party and there was like 40 people and I just got so sick. So I would like to give that as advice to anybody who is going into this situation is take it really slow.
You've said more than once how empathic you are.
I am.
And you led into this with, I went in with my heart
My
wide
heart open.
open, but my eyes closed. Can you elaborate on what that analogy means?
I was so excited. I mean, scared, of course, and nervous, but I was so excited to have, quote unquote, a family again, parents again, because I still had my sister, right? So it's not like I didn't have a family, but here I am not looking for anybody. And this seemingly wonderful family falls into my lap, right? Who've been looking for me, who want me, and all of that. And I will also say, in all of that, my sister that I grew up with, who was also adopted from the same home as me, did not feel the way I did about adoption. She had been looking for her family and she'd been looking for her family for years
Oh,
and she couldn't find them. And here I didn't give shit. And this
mm.
amazing family landed in my lap. And so I had to navigate that too and get them all to meet. So there was just a lot that I didn't think about because it was just all leading with my heart, right? Like, I'm so excited how wonderful these people want me. I'm part of a big family again. I have a brother. I'd never had a brother. It was so cool to have a brother, all that stuff. And I didn't pay attention to some of the signs that later showed up. which has
Mm.
led after 11 years of my trying to have a relationship with them. I no longer do. And that's okay too. They've been a wonderful gift in my life. They're just not who I need in my life at this point in time. I didn't fit their mold, and that's fine. I was not a
Yeah.
troll under a bridge, which my sister had a very hard time with, the one that found me. I don't think that they expected what I was. And I don't say that from a place of vanity. I've worked very hard for everything I have. I've studied very hard, gotten to good schools, speak multiple languages, have traveled the world. It is not on me that even though they had insane amounts of money, they perhaps were not as motivated in a lot of those areas as myself. And my sister felt you could feel it from her, right? Like competition, because now there was somebody to be compared to. She didn't like
Mhm.
it. And then she'd go to her father, who was married to my biological mother. And it ended up being a situation I didn't want to be part of anymore.
I understand.
It's not on me. It's not on me. I cannot take that on me.
It sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the sense I'm getting from what you're saying is this family is well off. There is a distant relative, you, who has been placed for adoption, and it feels like they were thinking to themselves, we need to go rescue this child from
Mhm.
whatever destitute situation she has landed in and bring her into our awesomeness of wealth. And that's not necessarily neither what you wanted nor what you needed. And it also sounds like it was misguided attempt at creating a relationship. It feels like they were going at it for the wrong reasons, perhaps.
I think it was a mix of I think you're dead on everything you said. However, I want to give them grace. I think
Sure.
there were some good reasons in there too.
Yes.
I think
I
it got
realize
very
that as a
muddled
fan.
for them. Yeah, I think they
Yes.
got very muddled, and religion started playing a part. So I
Mm.
was raised Catholic. They were raised Catholic. They're no longer Catholic. They are, I guess you'd call them evangelical Christians at this point. I was always super respectful of their beliefs. They were not in return.
Oh,
And that started becoming a problem. And then I started seeing that what they were preaching and what they were telling me to be like and me to do was they were saying one thing and doing another and behaving very differently. And I'm like,
mhm.
I don't do hypocrisy. The hypocritical thing is one of my touchstones. If you want to know how to piss me off, that would be how to do it, is to be telling me how you think I should behave, but yet you're doing whatever. And it's not my story to say what they were and were not doing, but some of it was not good.
Mm.
And yet they're being super judgmental of us and our beliefs and my spirituality, because I do lean much more spiritual now than religious. And I mean, they called me of the devil one day. I'm like, yeah, not so much. I think the opposite. My gifts are from God. And I'm like,
Unreal.
but yet you're doing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
There's drugs, there's women, there's all sorts of stuff going down. And I'm like, show me the commandment that goes by. Because
Yeah,
you're
right?
telling me to be a certain way, but you're behaving differently. And you're holding me to one standard, your kids to a different standard, and judging me and helping them. And I never needed a dime from them. And I think that also played a part in it. Her husband controlled his children through money. And I came in and I'm like, we don't need a penny. We're good. We're more than good. We've got a second home in Sedona. We're traveling the world. Like, so the fact that they couldn't, quote unquote, rescue me because I didn't need rescuing, we were financially well off, happily married, kids thriving. Like, I didn't need them, as you said. I just wanted them. I'm like, how wonderful this is. What a great opportunity. And again, that's where my eyes were closed. So I would just suggest to anybody listening who is thinking of moving forward on their journey and meeting biologicals to just go way slower than I did. And
Yeah,
don't show up and stay at their house, regardless of whether you have a ring to stay in or not. You need that time to disconnect and to go process
I
and
agree.
to absorb.
You may have heard Alejandra say she has gifts. She is an empath. So much so that being in her maternal reunion and taking on the energy of 40 people around her during that reunion left her suffering from migraines and bedridden, unable to leave their home. I asked Alejandra to share more about her gifts and her maternal relatives being so resistant to them.
Very resistant to them, which is really funny because my biological mother has them too. They're bloodline gifts. Our son has it, and he's like, I'm not ready for them yet. I'm like, that's fine. He goes, but I know I have them. I'm like, oh, clearly. Yes, my biological mother has them too. We had an entire conversation about it. So again, I don't know how deep your audience gets with all this, but since I was a child, have been able to see people who have passed. They've come to me after they've passed, and it's never about me. It's about my sharing a message with somebody who's left here maybe with questions. It's very normal for me. It's just I didn't realize everybody couldn't do it because it's just something I've always had.
You're not talking to yourself?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, really? You can't see? It's just, it's again, it's a gift, right? So I view it that way. So when I turned 50, I had to have a very unexpected cervical fusion. So I had to go down and they opened up my neck, which is interesting. Right now, it's all about my throat and sharing my story and sharing my message. But I have a big plate in my neck with screws and mesh and cadaver bones. And I have the same in my lower lumbar because I had to so my root chakra and my throat chakra had to be like they were broken, literally, right after that. So the reason I mentioned that is because that's when I pivoted and brought feng shui into my life and then closed down my design business, got certified in feng shui, started doing it as well. And feng shui was like my spiritual gateway drug to all things woo. And then that's where meditation came in. That's where I got the message. I'm highly clairaudient, so I get messages in my right ear. That's where I got the message to write the book. So all of this was happening while these people were still in my life. And I was questioning a lot because I'm like, okay, why is this happening? Why am I suddenly getting all this? Then as I started connecting the dots, I'm like, oh my God, I've been able to do this since I was a kid. I didn't realize what this was. And in working with healers and working with spiritual teachers, I found out, no, not everybody can see dead people, for lack of a better word, right? And I was talking to my biological mother about this. And she's the one that then shared with me that she had an experience. And your gift sometimes can come in dark or sometimes can come in light. And it's up to you. We all have free will to say, yes, I accept them, or I only accept the light. Some people might want the dark, whatever it is. Every situation's different. I think every human being on the planet has gifts. I don't think every human being will realize that and explore them and move forward with it. But I do think we are all born with gifts when our soul comes into this body on this earth at this time, at any time, right? So hers, the experience she shared with me was that hers came in very dark to the point where she lost the ability to speak, and they took her to a priest and they basically performed some sort of, for lack of a better term, exorcism. And I think that's when they started to veer away from the Catholic religion because that came in. And granted, if that had happened to me, that's a very scary experience. I'd be saying absolutely not, right, to any other experience after that. It's like, I don't want any part of it. Mine, however, came in light, and I only work in the light and I only stay in the light. And I'm very intentional about that. And every morning and every night, I begin and end my day saying, I will only be open to anything that's of the light. I am not open to anything that's of the darkness. And I can feel when someone comes to me and is not of the light very clearly. And that's what started. The
in
more
your
I
maternal
got,
reunion experiences, you start to
the
get
more
more
I
dark.
got to know them and the more I saw the way that they actually lived their life versus how they said they lived their life, there was a disconnect. And it was just not something that vibrated at the frequency that I vibrate at. So it just wasn't feeling beneficial to me anymore.
Alejandra tried to keep the maternal reunion alive for 11 years, from when she was 40 to 51 years old. At the age of 50, 1 year from the end of the maternal reunion, her paternal family found her too. Her birth father had passed away from stomach cancer at the age of 65. The man's sister found Alejandra, informing her that she had a paternal half-brother who was slightly younger than her at the age of 45. No one had told the man that a half-sister was part of their family, and he grew up as an only child.
I think you're my niece. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. A little TMI, but my husband was actually in the shower and I got an email with this information. And I remember running into the bathroom and going, oh my Ribbit milkshake. It's like, not again. Because the other relationship was already starting to show the cracks, and I didn't know how long that would be happening.
Uh-huh.
But then I went immediately to my mother's side and said, hey, this is what's happening. Do you know this person? She goes, oh my God, I remember her. It was my boyfriend's older sister. And she said, are you going to meet them? And I'm like, well, I'm thinking about it. I don't know. And she said, oh, we'll be here to support you. We'll go with you. We will be by your side. Don't worry, whatever you need from us. Because they also happen to be in Dallas. Now, none of these families originated in Dallas, which is crazy that they all now live 20 minutes apart from each other in Dallas.
But where were they when you were conceived?
Houston.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
So I'm like, oh, like the kids went to the same school. I'm like, what? Like they were both my biological mother and this aunt were both grandmothers at the same school. I'm like, that's what the title of my book is. I just can't make this shit up. Like I can't. If somebody asked me to write a screenplay, like I can't even create this scenario. This is bananas.
Yeah.
So first he flew here with his wife. They didn't bring their child either.
The
and
brother.
It was just the brother. And I just kept it the four of us. Our son was in college, so he wasn't around. But I just kept it super small. I told him to stay at a hotel. He would Uber back and forth, so they had that time to process. I'm like, we'll pick you up if you want to go snow. He loves craft beer, so did my husband. So we found some breweries to go to where it was a very relaxed, casual atmosphere. We made dinner here at the house. And it was just a very organic getting to know each other with zero pressure. And then about 2 months later, we said, okay, let me go to Dallas, meet his son, meet the aunts who were all chomping at the bit to meet me, especially the one that found me.
Yeah.
And it was going to be the big one again, 30 plus people and all of that. So I called my mother and I said, I'm coming to Dallas, right? She's 20 minutes down the street. Game on. Like, this is when I need your support. I'd like for you to come with me to this dinner to meet everybody. Your husband can come or not. It's not his thing. So, it doesn't matter. And she said yes. And then she went out of town the day before I got there. And I'm like, wait, you were going to support me. And then I found out her husband was in town. And she went like to the next town over to Frisco, which is not really out of town, to babysit my sister's children. So my sister and her boyfriend at the time could go somewhere for the weekend. And I'm like, well, wait a second. You guys knew this was happening for quite some time. And why can't granddad go babysit and you can come with me to support me?
She planned her escape.
100%. And that's where I started thinking, so all this kumbaya talk that you're there and you're the one that put me in this situation. I didn't go looking for any of this. And you said you'd support me if I moved forward with them. And now you're nowhere to be found. And mind you, the guy was dead, right? So it wasn't like she had to come face to face with him. There wasn't even that. His parents were dead. So she wasn't going to come face to face with anyone that, except maybe the sisters, the aunts, but that's no big deal. She didn't really know them, his sisters, with anybody who was a part of the initial situation. She was just going to be there to support me. And Art was going to be there too. And then I went, okay, interesting. And that was in the fall. Then Thanksgiving that year rolled around and I'm like, I'm just going to see what happens if I am not the first one to make the call, if I don't send the cards. Let's just see if they do anything on their end. And Thanksgiving came and went and not a phone call from any of them. I'm talking maternal. Brother, sister, in-laws, parents, nothing. All the way through Christmas. I think I got a text on Christmas morning. She sent Ryan a gift. She's always very good about sending our son a gift. I think I got a text on Christmas morning, Merry Christmas. And I said, Merry Christmas to you. And then by like February, I was like, it's been crickets for the entire holiday season. Oh, we had a fun one. We were going to New York City to do a mother-daughter trip. She suggested it. She said, I want to invite you and her daughter to New York City. Let's all try and get along because the daughter and I had already had massive ups and downs. And I just said, fine. She goes, you go to New York all the time, New York inside out. Can you plan the trip for us? Knowing what I know about their religious background and trying to be very conservative and all that, I'm like, so what's the best show that I can find? Because they wanted to go see a show. And Hair was out at the time, which is full frontal nudity at the end. There was a lot of shows that maybe were a little bit more controversial, except for like The Lion King. I'm like, we're not going to go see The Lion King. I mean, it's 3 grown women. So I thought of Wicked. I'd already seen it twice on Broadway and in Tampa. It's based on The Wizard of Oz. It's a phenomenal show. I love the music. I sent them all the information on it. And I said, this is what I'm thinking. Let me know your thoughts. And if you want me to organize the tickets, because she said she was going to buy all the tickets. And I'm like, okay, but you want me to get them because I know the theater and I know the seats and blah, blah, blah. So she said yes. And I sent her all the information on it. She sent me back. She goes, it's fine. It's a go. I'm like, okay, great. Bought all the tickets. She was going to reimburse me. And then about 2 days later, I get an email that says, we're going to cancel the trip to New York. As for me and my family, we do not want to be surrounded by evil. I'm like, it's wicked. It's the Wizard of Oz. And so I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm so completely caught off guard right now. I said, if you feel that wicked is evil for you and your family, again, I'm on the outside, right? I'm not part of you and your family because I'm the one that suggested this. I said, then maybe New York City is not the right destination. I said, you're going to see more egregious things walking down the sidewalk.
You ain't
You
wrong.
know? I mean, yes, you're right. I have
Just
been
getting
there
into the theater, you're going to be offended.
times. You are going to be, if that's going to offend you, New York might not be the spot.
That is
go.
the truth.
And I had done a 3-day itinerary. They love food. They love eating. I had planned out all these restaurants. So thing done. She sent me the money, reimbursed me for the tickets, moved on with her life. I said, I'm sorry, it didn't work out. Move on.
This
I'm
is
feeling
2 days before the trip.
And this is 2 days after I bought the ticket. And she
Oh.
had okayed the musical.
Uh-huh.
2 weeks later, when the trip was supposed to take place, I'm having lunch with friends and I get a phone call from another friend and she goes, hey, were you going to go to New York with your mother and your sister? Because my friends had all met them now. And I said, yeah, the trip got canceled. She goes, no, it didn't. Have you been on your sister's? I think it was Facebook at that time. And she goes, check out your sister's social. They're in New York and my sister's posting best mother-daughter trip ever. And all the locations are everything I planned.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? What?
And that's when I said, I'm done.
Oh, for sure. Because
I'm
that
done.
wasn't this trip is canceled. That was you were
This trip is
uninvited.
you're uninvited. Yes.
Oh my God.
And I said, I'm done. And I just sent her a note and I just said, this is no longer good for me, for my mental health. I cannot continue in this relationship. And she said, I'm sorry I hurt you. And I just said, I wish you and your family a beautiful life. And I don't want any more communication moving forward. So, I mean, that just told me everything as for me and my family. And I'm like, well, aren't I your family? And if I said this was okay, don't you trust me that
Yeah.
this show is okay? I've seen it. I took my 11-year-old son to see it. I'm telling you, and at some point in the future, I don't know when, there was like one more communication. She said her best friend went to see Wicked and said it was great. And she's like, oh, I need to go see it. I'm like,
Look,
I'm going to lose my mind.
oh, these people are wild.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It was no longer beneficial for me.
For sure.
But I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful that I got medical history. I'm grateful for what they taught me, right? Because sometimes those are the people that turn out to be your biggest teachers. And that's the way I view it. I have no anger or hatred. I have nothing but love for them. Truthfully, I know it sounds trite, but I really do because they taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And I just wish them well, but it's not beneficial for me to be in that mix and in that energy.
I'm with you 100%. You get to say you've met them. One of the things in my paternal reunion was my birth mother thought my birth father was the wrong person. And so I found this wrong guy before I learned who the right guy was. And when I connected with him, we had no rapport whatsoever. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to meet this guy at all. But do I want to go my whole entire life not having been face to face with my biological father at least once? And so I can appreciate what you're saying about having at least gotten the opportunity to face with them, get to know them, let them prove who they were, and then
Yes.
you get to make the decision as to whether you want the relationship or not. Versus some people are summarily dismissed. You reach out to them and they're like, I don't
Right.
want to know you at all. And you're like, wait, we didn't even get to try this out. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And being a person who is interested in the positive light, I also can appreciate what you're saying about not wanting them in your life because they're bringing the darkness. And so just, all right, we've done our thing. You've
Right.
proven who you are. Time to let you go so that I can proceed in a mode of positivity. So that's I really can appreciate your giving it a chance, and then
11
There you
years.
go.
yeah,
I
11
gave it a
years
chance
is
for
a big change.
very up and down. I promise that if I called her right now and said, I need something, they would still do it. And if they called me, I think that I would do it too. I'd like to think that we would still be there if somebody needed something. If there was a kidney or there was some situation where nobody else was a match, like I don't want to see anything bad happen to any of them.
Right.
I just don't want to be in the day-to-day minutia with any of them either. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, lateral damage is the kids, right? Because both my brother and sister had kids, and I love those kids, and they are great kids. But because of their ages, I had to disconnect from them as well because I didn't feel it would be correct for me to be reaching out to the kids, even on social, when I'm no longer speaking to their parents. Oh,
Mhm.
hopefully when they're their own, when they're 18, 20, whatever, if they ever reach out to me, I'm very open to that as well because the children are not responsible for the sins of the parents, as they say.
Yeah.
So very open. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you open this can of worms, there's so many people that get affected. So many. I talked to my son and I'm like, if you want your grandmother at your wedding, which was in 2023, at this point he was 28, like, I'm fine with her being there. I have no problem. But he read my book. He goes, yeah, no. He goes, no, I have no interest in having her there. And I'm like, but that is your choice. She didn't do anything to you.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a relationship as an adult man, I'm like, you are welcome. I have literally zero issue in being in the same room with her. Certainly
That's
not for
fair.
a wedding or anything. But he just said, no, I don't. The reason I wrote
Yep.
about it is because I feel very strongly that it will help others who find themselves in these situations and maybe help guide them a little bit better. So that's the only reason I wrote about it.
Alejandra said her relationship with her paternal half brother is great, very different than a sisterly relationship where there is competitive tension. With her brother, they can just grab a beer and be easy. She's grateful for their easygoing relationship and she really loves him. Speaking on meeting the aunt that found her, Alejandra spoke of her with joy too. She was very sweet, loves to chat, and the whole family is very easy to be near.
What you see is what
love
you
it.
get. They're uncomplicated. They're not trying to force anything from me. They were when I was writing the book, I asked for their permission to share some of the emails that she had written me, which tell the story because my father was no longer around, right? So I asked if I could share some of those emails that would bring a little bit more context to their side of the adoption and all of that. And she gave me full permission to use everything and their real names. I did not ask the biological mother's side, and I never used their names. And the only excerpts I have used from that side have been communications that are directly to me or communications that I sent because those are my words. I can
Yeah.
use them.
Right.
And if they
Yeah.
said something to me, they said something to me. So, and if I had it written down, if they've never done anything about it, if they ever did, I'm like, well, here's the email. Tell me what I said that was
Right. I got the receipts. Yeah.
got
Let
them.
me let me ask you this in terms of meeting your paternal aunt. You were found after your birth father's passing. Did she give you the impression that he had wanted to find you? Was he part of her decision to search for you, or did she take this upon herself?
So that case is very different. So I met his wife at the time. She's an ex-wife by the time they found me, but my brother's mother.
Mhm.
So she says that several years after they were married, it was very interesting to get the other side of the story because if you listen to the maternal side of it, he was a villain. And if you listen to his family side of it, it's a little bit different. It's actually his mother that forced him to not be in my biological mother's life and to not have anything to do with me. And karma is so interesting. I was born on that woman's birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So my biological mother actually called. So see, now I have both sides, right? So my biological mother actually called his house on my birthday and spoke to her because she wouldn't give the phone to him and said, I had a baby girl today. Are you sure that there's no chance that I can talk to him, that we can raise this child together, blah, blah, blah. And she said, don't you ever call my house again. You are not my problem. That child is not my problem. You are not going to ruin my son's life. These are the words that were given to me by my biological mother that she said to this woman whose birthday I was actually born on.
Uh-huh.
On his end, from the family and from the ex-wife, he pulled the ex-wife aside at one point and said, "Hey, there's this thing out there. She may show up someday. Apparently, I've got a kid that I had with this woman. And if somebody ever comes knocking at the door, that's who it is. I'm just letting you know." But no, there was never, from anything that I've gathered, any inclination on his end to search for me, find me. He's like, "Oh God, there's this problem that may or may not show up." And that was his take on it. So as
Did you
far
get
as
the impression that you were portrayed as a problem, or just, I want you to be situationally aware? Because problem and situationally aware are different.
I think problem from everything that they've all said about him and the way he was. And I actually look somewhat like him too. And my body shape is his. And my son looks a lot like him now because he looks more like me. And he's like 6 foot. And so the way everyone described him, and I have permission from his family to use his name was Richard, but they called him Dick. And they said he lived up to his nickname.
Really?
Apparently he was a dick.
Yeah.
And the nicest thing anybody said about him, including his family, is that he was gorgeous. I'm like, wait, that's not a trait. That's just something you're born with. That's just, and they're like, yeah, he was really gorgeous. He was so handsome. I think they said charismatic too, but it was really all based on how good looking he was and the
Yeah.
fact that he was apparently a dick. So I do think that from what they've shared with me, it was kind of like, oh, shit, this might happen. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I never wanted to be that. That's one of the reasons why I never wanted to look for my biological mother. I'm like, if she moved on with her life and didn't tell anybody this happened, I'm grateful for what she did for me. And I would not want to purposely come in and ruin someone's life. I'm good. I don't need it.
Yep.
So for me, in my instance, right? Everybody's different. My sister felt very differently. She wanted that connection. She wanted to look for that family. I just didn't care.
I
And
guess.
funny enough, I found something out as my studies progressed and as my spirituality and all that developed. I found out that they told my biological mother, right, that 3 days after she had me, that the adoptive parents came. But I knew from the records and from my adoption date and from everything else, and my parents told us this when we were little. They didn't pick us up until we were 5 weeks old, both my sister and I. So where was I for those basically 5 weeks minus 3 days? And from the work I've done, and part of it is intuitive and part of it is with healers. So it's not in science. It's not necessarily a fact, but it seems pretty clear. We were in a kind of holding place that was adoption agency, but maybe more orphanage. And I was only picked up to be changed and to be fed because this place was run by nuns. And of course, they're not soft and cuddly. So those first 5 weeks, I was not doing that bonding and that being held and all that stuff. And that translates very much to the way I am. And it actually really helped give me some insight on why I am the way I am and probably why I was able to walk away from that instance with my biological family. I don't have that.
How are
I
you?
can
What do you,
walk.
when you say the way I am, how are you describing yourself?
I am able to walk away from pretty much any situation. The only person I think I can never walk away from is my son. That's the
Yeah.
only one I feel truly bonded to. I mean, I adore my husband. We've been together since college. But if I needed to walk away, yeah, I
Yeah.
can walk away from friendships. I can walk away from family. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good trait. Like, I'm not bragging about it.
I
I'm
know.
saying that explained so much to me about why I have that in me. Because even my husband has said along the years, he's like, you just really let that friendship go about other things. I'm like, yeah, it ran its
Yep.
course. Yeah. And I don't have any like, oh, I really miss that person. Like they just cease to exist.
Yeah.
And
It's
again,
just
not
so
saying it's a great,
fascinating.
it's
Yeah.
part of the not ever bonding. And by the time my parents got me, they were the opposite, right? I used to get a gold star for going poopy in the potty. Like they were almost too much. They were the epitome of helicopter hover, flood with love
Yes.
parents. But those 5 weeks did something to my DNA
It
and to the way
does.
that I process. And it's just interesting. And I find it very helpful to know that's why I react to things the way I react. Because again, my
Yes.
husband's like, I don't get you, man. You can be cold. And I'm like, I know. And I never
Yeah.
knew why. And then
I'm
when
going to
I
give you
dug into why,
something.
I'm like,
So
yeah,
I'm listening to all my old episodes and because I'm doing some writing and I'm listening to an episode where I interviewed a gentleman named Dr. Bruce D. Perry. He wrote a book called What Happened to You. And it's the intent of the title is to go against what we typically say to a child out of habit, like, what is wrong with you? It's not what's
yeah,
wrong with you, it's what happened to you. The reason I
right.
raised this interview, and it might interest you to listen to it, I'll send it to you after
Absolutely.
this,
Please do. Please.
is you're going to hear us go through a conversation where he describes a concept in the book of time and timing. So the timing of when something happens to you
Right.
and how long the duration of that thing is happening for. And you and I have a similar piece in our infancy where I too was in foster care. I was not adopted until 3 months old. I
Mm,
was removed from my birth mother via C-section and we separated immediately. So for literally 3 full months, I don't know where I
nothing.
was.
Right.
The reason that I raised this is because what Dr. Perry talks about is when you're a child, you are bonding to your parents. And as you grow a little bit older, cry when you're hungry, cry when you need to be changed. And that cry creates a response in somebody else who comes and rescues you from that situation. Right.
Right.
And so you start to get bonded to the person and to the process of this call and response. And as you get older and older, let's say you're a toddler, your mom is right over there on the couch, but you're over here playing and you fall down, right? You have proximity and you will run to her to get the
Hmm.
comfort that you need. And then you can start venturing out again into challenging yourself in your environment. But what happens when you don't have that comfort and you end up making yourself comfortable way over here, far away from somebody who would normally be the comfort zone for you? So, what you and I have is comfort away over here, where a person, you don't have to have a relationship in order to feel
Right.
comfortable. You're fine by yourself because that's something that you learned very early on. So, it's an interesting callback to that discussion that we had because this thing where an individual will either find comfort close to people and therefore will find comfort in being around people, or you will find comfort not necessarily being around people. And so when they leave, you're like, peace, I'm good. You know what
Right.
I mean? It's really
Right. Oh,
fascinating.
absolutely. Do you also need, like, I told my husband, I'm like, I need at least an hour by myself every day to just
Yeah,
process. Like, I need that alone time. I cannot have somebody around me 24/7.
definitely. I think
I
that's
just
part of
need
why
that.
I get up so early in the morning
That's
because the
your
house is
time.
totally quiet.
Yeah,
Nobody's up for 2, 3 hours. And it's just me. I don't have anybody chattering in my ear. Nobody needs
exactly.
anything from here. I can do exactly what I want to do. And yeah, I do feel that way as well. And I think a lot of people feel that too. It's like when you go to a conference or you go to a big meeting and you're on and
Oh,
everybody wants to talk
it's
to you and you have to
exhausting.
smile and grin and shake hands and be on. I definitely, at the end of the day, as much as I get energy from people and I am gregarious and engaging with folks,
Hmm.
definitely have to step away and be like, let me just quiet all of this down. I got it. I
Yep.
need a moment. I need to be away from you people. I need to reset myself a little bit.
You know what helps me, and I can't always do it, right? Like if I had like a 7-hour install yesterday and lovely clients, gorgeous home, all things good, right? Nothing was bad. But I do salt baths because salt clears energy from you. But if you don't have time to do a salt bath, and sometimes it's like just too much effort to even turn on the water, I just want to get in the shower. Salt scrubs, which might be better for you. Like if you have presented or done something on a large audience, sadly, those of us that are like, we take it all in, right? We're taking on anytime you shake hands, anytime you're touching another person, you're sucking in some of that energy. Salt scrubs are a great way to cleanse yourself. And then you can also put salt like in your room and leave it for 24 hours, and salt absorbs negative energy and then throw it like in the toilet. So a lot of
Yeah.
those things I do on a very routine basis because like you, I'm out, I'm in public, I'm teaching workshops, I'm giving talks, I'm working with clients. Yesterday, we were shopping for antiques. My hands were on fire after I was touching all this stuff that belonged to other people. So I came home and I'm like, I gotta go wash my hands. I gotta stick them in salt. Like I gotta do something to cleanse them and get that energy off. So
Awesome.
yeah, I think those are all just little tips and tricks for any of us who feel like we need that cleansing after we need to be by ourselves and we need to clear ourselves of other people's energy.
Yeah, I hear you 100%. Wow. Alejandra, this has been absolutely amazing. For everybody who doesn't remember, tell us the name of your book again.
I just can't make this shit up.
And you really can't. It has been so wonderful to have you, Alejandra. Thanks so much for everything, okay?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was so nice to chat with you.
Good to chat with you too. Take care. All the best, okay?
All right. Bye.
Hey, it's me. Alejandra is a transracial adoptee, a white woman raised by Mexican parents on the border of Mexico in deep Texas. I thought it was interesting to hear that she never wanted to search for her birth family despite being aware of her adoption and lacking mirroring as she towered over her parents. It was really cool to hear that both her maternal and paternal sides of her biological families were looking for her. So many adoptees hope that after separation for placement, we are thought of, but to have family members go through the massive efforts to locate and connect with her said a lot about their desire to find Alejandra. I was glad that Alejandra and I had the conversation about her birth mother's letters not making it out of the adoption agency. I wanted to make sure she understood that not receiving those letters might not have been her adoptive parents' fault. And I loved hearing that Alejandra gave it all she could with her maternal reunion, then accepted that her birth mother's actions spoke louder than her words, and she feels confident in her decision to end their day-to-day relationship. If you're in reunion and it's not necessarily living up to what you want it to be, I encourage you to examine whether you're putting in more than you're receiving in return, and ask yourself if you need the relationship or if you really want it, but it's time to move on. The time and energy you invest can never be recovered from a relationship with no reciprocity. I'm Damon Davis, and I hope you found something in Alejandra's journey that inspired you, validates your feelings about wanting to search, or motivates you to have the strength along your journey to learn, who am I really?